The
How are
man, the
ya?
myth,
Hey,
the
Jen.
legend. How are you? Is it Patrick or you go by Pat?
Yeah, Patrick is great, Harry. Nice to meet
Okay.
you formally. I think you
Yeah.
and I have crossed paths here and there, but never actually met. So nice to meet you.
Yeah, I go by Harrison.
No, he doesn't. That's a lie.
I'm kidding. Well, hey, Patrick, thanks for being on the call. And I'm actually on vacation, so I'm in a
Oh, wow.
very loud bar or restaurant. So I'm gonna let Jen run most of the call, and I'll be on mute, but I'll jump in. But anyway, just as Patrick Livingston from IRI, and we're here with Jen Litz, and we've got some good questions for you, I think, because a lot's going on that really, to me, I mean, what does make sense at this point, right? But yeah, we're really glad you're here to give us some insights. Jen, why don't you take it away?
Cool. Well, thanks again, Patrick. We've talked a lot the last few months, and you always have some great insights. So thank you for being willing to be interrogated yet again. So thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, no softballs today. I really want you to throw them at me, guys. So thanks a lot, especially with Harry on vacation. And next time, you got to invite us out to the lodge, wherever you are. It looks nice.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We've got stories about that. That's for the next podcast, the happy
Very
hour
good.
podcast. But
I love it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what we're really, like Harry kind of hinted at, what we're really interested at this point is what's going on with the absence of trade down, right? You would think that at this point in the year, with 10% of people unemployed, there really hasn't been any federal stimulus for the last 2 months, that you'd really start to see value brands as a whole jump a lot and premiums maybe modulate or moderate, but we really haven't seen that. So, and retailers are telling us they're not seeing a bunch of trade down yet, at least, the ones we've talked to. So what is the unemployed cohort drinking, right? Are they drinking outside of value brands? Like, what's that dynamic like now?
Yeah, it's a really good question and a big question too. We're getting this question from a lot of our clients and a lot of folks are asking. The good news is the unemployment rate is at 10%, which is an odd thing to say because I think it was at 14% just
right.
a few weeks prior. So certainly good to see some folks getting back to work, especially in those frontline service jobs. I think at least 500,000 of those jobs were restaurant and bar workers, which is good to see people getting back out there. But it still does beg the question, why are we not seeing more trade down in our segment level data? I'm looking at this in a couple of different ways, and we don't really track, the unemployed as a group of panelists or consumers, but we do have ways to get to them. So, I was thinking about this exact question, and if we look in the LA market, there's a specific retailer in that market, a food retailer, and I'm not going to name exactly who they are just because we have some privacy needs, but they're a food retailer in the LA market, and they make up about 14% of the total beer dollars. So they're pretty substantial. This retailer also caters to the lower income demographic zip codes. And it was important for me to take a look at their data just to see how things were looking. And what I find is that even in this chain that tends to cater to this market, we are not seeing a substantial uptick in sub-premium beer share. In fact, it's the opposite. So similar to the LA market, sub-premium is slightly down in this particular food chain. Also similar to the LA market, we're seeing FMBs with hard seltzers gain a substantial amount of share. We're seeing super premiums led by Michelob Ultra gaining a very good amount of share. And of course, in this particular chain, we're seeing a lot more import, specifically Mexican import share as a total, but it's having similar trends with even the import side of the business as well. So we're not seeing a whole lot of evidence, even when we zero in on the subject, that trade down is happening. So we looked at it another way too. We're thinking about our consumer income data that we track, and we do track a large number of consumers by income break. And when we broke those consumers down, and then we looked at even the lowest income group, which again are most likely to be more heavily affected by the unemployment figures, again, I am not seeing a substantial uptick in the sub-premium segments. So again, leaves us, it confirms what we have been seeing in the higher level data, but it leaves the question of why not? And I think that question is still very much on the table. And as we think about some of the penetration levels for sub-premium among those lower price or lower income, I should say, demographics, we are seeing a little bit of an uptick in the premium segment, which obviously is helping to support those big premium brands. And we're even seeing that upwards in the $75,000 to $100,000 household income ranges as well. But by and large, the massive driver of beer segment shifting still continues to favor the high end.
And that includes seltzers, right? I mean, to me, it seems like seltzers sucking the oxygen, and it doesn't matter how much money you make, you're still going to pay that premium for a seltzer product. Is that kind of what you're seeing too?
Yeah, I think that could be said. I mean, seltzers do provide a good value. They certainly are priced in the high end, but again, they're providing a little bit higher alcohol in some cases. They're providing flavor, which might be helping to drive that continued uptrend. I mean, also looking at some of the other brands that are bringing growth to the high end. If you think of Michelob Ultra and some of the positioning around calories and carbs, those continue to add just a little bit more value that consumers are willing to purchase. So yeah, I think you're right. I think even the seltzers are, I guess we can say, the whole category and some of these high-end segments are defying gravity in a way. They are continuing to draw higher prices out of consumers that otherwise, really shouldn't be able to afford it, yet they're finding a way.
I have to ask too, though, we were wondering, I'm sure you've read our weekly write-ups, it's like, oh my God, seltzer's only growing 130%. Last week, 2-3 weeks ago, it was growing 300%. Is there any reason to look at that sort of moderation of seltzer growth and say, oh no, it's really slowing down? Or is it simply a matter of the law of large numbers and maybe even some cannibalization, like you have, for instance, White Claw pack number 2, maybe taking a little bit of the wind out of the sails of White Claw pack number 1, right?
Yeah, I read that this morning as well. And I think that, definitely seltzers continue to deliver, triple digit growth in almost every measure. Now, in some cases, specifically at the package level, we're certainly lapping a big year in 2019. I think we started last year, if I remember, we started calling it the summer of seltzers right around June. And then by July or August, we started calling it the year of seltzers because it seemed like it was going to stick around. And now I guess we'll call it maybe we'll call it the decade of seltzers when this is all said and done. But certainly 2019 produced a giant lift. In fact, I believe that hard seltzers had the largest year-over-year segment lift in the past 40 years in 2019. So now we're dealing with the comps and cycling it out, which I think certainly became apparent in some of the softened trends. Really at the same time the summer of seltzers began in that June timeframe this year, lapping the June timeframe from 2019. So I think that's part of why we're seeing some softening. I hesitate to ever use any terms that sound soft or negative related to seltzer, just because, the reality is, I think you guys reported as well, something that we did that shows, the pie itself is getting much, much bigger. It's, just about 3 times as large of a segment as it was in 2019 during the summer. So even though there could be a perceived slowing of trend, certainly nothing is backing off or getting any smaller. It's just a matter of, I think, comparing it to a pretty big year last year and some pretty big comps.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Cool. We'll try to keep the rhetoric in line when it slows down to, 100%. Yeah, I'd still love to be in that business. No offense, Harry. Anyway, kind of shifting again, kind of back to our previous conversation about sub-premiums. Do you expect those to pick up steam in the second half as things may get harder for consumers? Or, I mean, I know I'm asking you to, look forward at the data and you have the data to date, but just curious about your thoughts.
Yeah, it's a good question, and we definitely have our finger on the trigger. We're watching the numbers weekly, daily in some cases. We have retailers that give us daily data now, and we're trying to pick up that. I don't know if we call it a green shoot or a early indicator or something like that related to when some premium might start to pick up steam related to economic distress and kind of the need to economize around beer purchases. We certainly have seen it in the past recessionary periods, and it is a trend to expect within a deep recession if that's where we go. Yeah, like I said, we haven't seen it yet. Hesitate to predict it without seeing at least a little bit of movement in that direction. And as I mentioned, with even the lowest income households not showing any sort of shift into sub-premium, as of the latest 12 weeks. I don't have a whole lot to base this off of, but I think that we can look at we can look at this trend, very, very carefully, and thinking about some of the stimulus drivers that you guys called out very aptly, with of course those supplemental unemployment payments of $600 tapering off at the end of July. And maybe there's something coming. Maybe it's another $300. Maybe it's another $400 if the states chip in. But that won't start until September at the earliest. So that leaves us with August, which that's kind of an economist's dream, to have a natural occurrence of differences in causal factors. And I think August is going to be a really good month to look at to see, hey, what would it look like if there isn't additional stimulus pumped into the economy, and then compare that to the latest. Now, with that said, even though I think it might be a nice sandbox to play in and see how things might look in the future, I mean, again, I'm looking at the latest data here, and if I look at the latest 2 weeks of data, I've actually seen the beer trend accelerate versus the last 2 weeks in July. So the 2 weeks through mid-August of this year have actually accelerated versus the 2 weeks ending July. In fact, I think beer is up 13.4% for the latest 2 weeks through mid-August. And I compared that to the prior 2 weeks, which we still had the stimulus check payout, and that beer was up 11.9 then. So again, the category seems to be defying gravity in a way that is very difficult to base predictions on. So I'm not in the business of it. I know you guys are really good at it. You usually nail those year ends.
I am the best at prediction. I mean,
you are. Your track record is like 9 out of 10, I think. It's
not that good, but yeah. But I see what you're saying though. August can be a really good control data set because we don't have stimulus checks, and the weather's. I don't know if the weather's been any different in August than any other, July or September. Of course, we have a hurricane that rolled in this week, so that'll skew some data around, obviously. One of the green shoots that I've noticed in Subpremium, and I hate to keep I think some of my readers are like, Harry, why are you so fixated on Subpremium? And I don't want Subpremium to take off any more than anybody else does, right? Hey, let's ride the premium and super premium wave into the future. It's just we've never seen this before. In 2008, every time we have a financial crisis, so we're, like you said, you used the perfect description phrase, which is defying gravity. We've not seen this before. And the one green shoot, if you want to call it that I've seen, is Busch Light. And is that just an anomaly in the Midwest, or are you seeing Busch Light kind of going everywhere? We didn't ask you to look at that, so this is
Yeah, no, yeah, and I
one of those
saw you, and
questions.
no, and I saw you guys reported on it over the past couple of days, and that, some really good on the street knowledge of what might be going on there, and some good ideas. I don't have an in-depth study on it. I don't know. I think you have some really good starters in terms of what could be driving it. But like any good model, there's probably multiple causals. It's probably not just one thing, and I think you're doing the right thing to look at it from every angle. But yeah, I don't have a specific study on that brand just yet.
Cool. I think our conversation also begs the question, generally, can you kind of sum what has happened to pricing in beer year to date? And again, since I have you here, trying to make you look into your crystal ball, what do you think could happen with that in the back half?
Yeah, I was actually just talking to our head analytics guy who really looks at pricing in a deep way. And I wanted to make sure that some of my thoughts and comments are in line with what we're seeing across the playing field. Because pricing can be misleading as well. Sometimes we're looking at pricing from a macro level, and it may not be, really driving the reality, which really is a store package gap level of observation by a consumer, and that drives them to make a choice. But yeah, I mean, I think generally pricing is very, very healthy for the beer category in the latest data. I think
that includes trade up, just to be clear, right? It's not just
yes,
pricing and trade up are both in the mix.
Absolutely, and that's a great point, right? We're thinking about package mix and product mix and segment mix separately than the macro view that I'm commenting on, which is really the dollar, the total price divided by the volume, and that kind of comes up with the total. So if there's trade up, which there is, it's going to create that healthy price environment as well. So absolutely true. And even with that said, it's still real dollars that are ringing through the register, and our retailer partners and our distributor partners and our suppliers, everyone is benefiting.
You can't cash cases at the bank, as my old boss used to always tell me.
I've heard that, and I think it makes a lot of sense. Unless you try to do that one time to pay some bills, if it's a rough week, I don't know.
Well, listen, I've paid my plumber many times in beer, so it's not always true.
So yeah, but looking at that macro number, including the mix trade up, I'm looking at pricing for the beer category up 4.2% in the latest 4 weeks, and that's both promoted prices coming up and also base prices coming up. So it's not just the effect or the potential effect of retailers doing fewer promos, which is part of it, but it's also the base prices are coming out through that mix that you talked about. I'm seeing some hot spots in terms of what's propping it up as well in really part of the mix, but maybe not the most obvious spots. Of course, we know Seltzer is the biggest driver of everything that we're looking at in the category right now. And certainly promo pricing is up for Seltzer. I think that with the out of stock issues, there's not really as much of a need to promote. People are buying as much as they can find, and it seems to be the right strategy. But also, in other high-end pricing, I'm seeing cider price come up quite a bit. Seeing non-alcoholic price come up. Now, of course, that's going to be due to the innovation. I mean, the innovations came in imports and craft, and that's going to help. It's kind of high-end mix within even a subsegment. So we're seeing some of that drive, and everything just feels very healthy. I would expect that to continue. I think that we should expect a fairly healthy GPI in the fall. I believe that many of these suppliers, and working with their distributors and their retailers, are going to target smarter promotions. Why subsidize a sale if you don't have to, especially for the hottest products in the store? I think that price gaps are always very, very important, and I would make that a watch out for those brands that are and are not going after a pulse price promotion, to think about what the price gaps might look like to the consumer when your competitor goes off on a post off and you stay where you are, and how that could disrupt some of the traditional brand loyalty and repeats we might be seeing on seltzers. You know, I also think, with that said, why not price up? Why not continue to price up wherever possible? I think that we, you know, have done a good job in this industry of capturing value, and it's certainly showing in the latest numbers. And that can't be said for every category, every industry these days. So we are in a bright spot, and I think we are making the best of what we have, which is really, you know, a very strong off-premise with some great consumer demand in the high end.
I mean, demand is always the greatest precursor to taking pricing, and demand, I think the industry would be crazy not to take a little pricing off the table at this point with demand so high. On the other hand, we are competing with spirits and wine and other beverages, and those, you know, kind of depends on what those guys do as well. So I think the competitive set is not just beer anymore, like we always think it is, and it's hard to get out of that dog-headed mindset. But yeah, I think I see a pretty, I see a healthy GPI in the fall as well.
It's a great point with spirits as well, because talk about defying gravity. I mean, spirits just continues their hot, you know, I'll call it higher mid double-digit growth, if we can coin a new phrase, you know, in the 20s to 30s. And they continue even in the latest weeks, where we have seen a bit of slowing of the beer trends in the off-premise. You know, spirits continues to rocket. I mean, spirits continues to grow those mid double digits in the C-store channel, which to me has been really the one to dig into throughout this whole pandemic. You know, what is it? And of course, it already was, because there's not much base. It already was growing before the pandemic. But, you know, now looking into the data of spirits in C-store, we're seeing those premixed cocktails move. We're seeing some of the mixers move through C-store as well. And, you know, the best insight that we could attach to that is the fact that, hey, C-stores are doing what they've always done, which is provide convenience, and people are looking for more convenient ways to pick up their spirits and mix their cocktails. And it has almost proven to be a proxy to an on-premise establishment. The fact that the C-stores are local, they're in the neighborhood, and they're getting you something quick and kind of maybe filling out that at-home meal in some cases. And I think there's something to be said about that. And yeah, definitely.
That's interesting. I never even thought of that. That's the C-store kind of taking over the local pub,
right.
You know.
Yeah, I mean, I spent a lot of time in Chicago, and we had BYOB restaurants there, where the C-stores in that neighborhood acted like liquor stores, because in fact they were, if you think about it, they were distributing the liquor for those on-premise meals. So I think that today you can even see that as a proxy. It's almost like your home is the BYOB restaurant.
Very interesting. Yeah, we'd always thought of the convenient factor, but yeah, I mean, almost like
Patrick, just so you know, Jen is never without 4 to 5 beverages around her at any given. Always. It's, you know, this early in the day, it's normally non-alcoholic, but
I was going to ask what's in there. Yeah.
I mean, she is always drinking, and I don't know, like, I've never seen her in a restaurant.
Too. This one is a Yeti, and this one's a Hydro Flask. So
wow,
send your payments to Yeti and Hydro Flask.
I don't have those. I did get. I should probably show you. I did get my. I think it's pronounced Brewmate, which is the little. Is it Brewmate? Yeah, it's a little cozy, and it's for a slim can. So I thought that was a pretty smart move recently.
Yeah,
I might break that out later.
Yeah, totally.
we actually have slim can koozies too that are branded with Beer Business Daily. So we'll be sure and we'll ship you some.
Oh, I'd love it.
You bet.
Make sure you use them in every video cast, though.
You know, it also, yeah, it absolutely makes sense. It really, it kind of takes a winning trend and it rebrands it BBD. So you guys benefit from the trend. I love it.
Yeah. Well, Harry, let me get this train back on the tracks. I'm just kidding. I love Harry. He's like my second dad. Um, so we're talking about value and mix. Has large pack growth slowed in recent weeks at all? Because I've heard that from a couple retailers, but at a larger level, that might not be true.
Yeah, I mean, I just looked at that recently as well, and and I don't think it has. I mean, from a total view, total U.S. MULO C, I'm still seeing. Let's see, in the latest 12-week data, I'm seeing suitcases. Actually, this would be 24 packs, including cans and bottles, so even better. Up 25.9%, so certainly outpacing the beer category trends. I'm seeing 30 packs up 15.4%, again, outpacing. There also seems to be continued surge in the 12 pack, which is up 33.7%, which kind of goes against that, stock up, panic buying, big pack approach that we knew was, really defining March and April and even past that. So I guess I can't say I'm seeing a lot of slowdown in the large packs, but if you include 12 pack in that large pack as well, maybe we certainly are seeing continued growth there.
Well, that's a great segue. You talked about the trends, the stock up trends, and people are maybe less inclined to hoard these days when they buy because they know the grocery store hasn't failed them yet, especially not for beer. So we talked earlier this year about the first era of COVID, and you kind of had different names for the different periods. So what period are we in now? And what sort of consumer behaviors is that characterized by, and how long do you think expect that period to last?
You guys do a great job of documenting everything I say to make sure you check me up on it later. I love it. This is good. This is part of the brand. The BBD brand is to make a prediction, make a statement, then check up in 6 months. I love it.
Hold on.
No, it's great. And I'm glad that you do it. It's the right thing to do. And it certainly makes sure that whenever I speak, my comments are well-founded. So, I think that's right. I looked back at it and saw that in April, when no one knew what was going on, we kind of tried to coin some phasing. And certainly there was the stock up phase, and that peaked in March. That was like nothing we've ever seen before. And I personally think like nothing we're ever going to see again. Some people are talking about this second wave and stock up there, and certainly it's possible, and we will see some of that. But I think consumers now know what that feels like, and the panic might be a little bit different this time. I'm not sure people are going to go out and buy all the toilet paper on the shelf when they know it will be available in some fashion, within a couple of weeks. So stock up phase was that first phase, and I think that's very much complete and in the history books. Replenishment is that second phase we talked about, and that is where it's going to be hard for us to define the start and stop of it. But I think that certainly replenishment was meant to be a phase that began post stock up. The idea was people began to draw down their at-home stock, and then they replenish that and do so at a greater rate than they had in the past. So bigger trips and maybe less frequent trips in order to fulfill that period of time. I think that kind of behavior and those numbers, at least in the beer category, continued April, May, and June. They backed off a little bit toward the end of June, but we're still experiencing it to some degree. I mean, I have access to some pretty in-depth consumer survey information that we are doing consistently throughout the COVID period at IRI, and there's still a lot of consumers that are claiming that they're making fewer larger trips to grocery and kind of bulking up. I think it's about a third of consumers claiming that they are still in that behavior pattern. Now it's down a lot. It was almost 2/3 back in March and April of consumers claiming they were doing those big stock up trips. But now it's about a third. It continues to be about a third. And then I have, about a quarter of consumers saying that they are still stocking up on pantry staples and essentials more than usual. like those canned foods, frozen foods, toilet paper, etc. Now, again, that was about 50% back in March and April, and now it's down to about 25%. But still, you know, a good quarter to a third of consumers are still out there, you know, in this replenishment phase. So there's certainly no clear end date as to when all consumers in all states, you know, kind of backed off this type of behavior. I think it exists, and it exists at the household level, and it also exists at the state level as well, as different states open up in different ways. And you know, I looked at the latest 4 weeks, and I think states, you know, widely differ in their trends. You know, whereas the beer category in the total U.S. has slowed to a low teen trend for the weekly trends into August. If you look at states like Colorado, Arkansas, Oregon, of course, Colorado has the benefit of you know, the 3-2 loosening that happened last year. But if you look at those 3 states, I'm seeing trends for the beer category of 26% in Colorado. I'm seeing Arkansas and Oregon up 19%. I'm seeing California, where I am, I'm here in San Francisco, we're up 18% for the latest 4 weeks in the beer category. I mean, even Florida, where you can go to Disney World today if you wanted to. I think you can still. I think it's still open, and that's up. Beer is up 13% in Florida for the latest 4 weeks. So, you know, leads us to the last phase, which we called it recovery. And I'm not in a position to say it's here. I'm not in a position to say that we're past that replenishment phase yet, because I think it turned into a more local observance of how consumers are behaving differently by household, by state. You know, I'm not gonna subscribe to the term of a new normal, because like people are saying new normal all the time, and nothing is normal. I mean, there is nothing normal. And I don't think that the year 2020 we'll be able to say there's a new normal that has set in at any point through the end of the year, is my personal opinion. So yeah, we talked about stock up. I think that's done. Replenishment ongoing, happening here and there. And recovery, I mean, I'm not ready to put up the flag, mission accomplished just yet.
You know, one of the things that I remember learning early on in the beer business is that when people have beer in their house, they drink it faster. And I'm thinking that maybe that has something to do with why replenishment is still so strong, is that, oh my gosh, we have, you know, 2 30-packs in the pantry. You know, let's get to drinking. And, you know, if we're staying at home anyway, and I don't know, that's a side theory. I don't, obviously that doesn't account except for a small percentage of what the growth is, but that could have something to do with it.
Oh yeah, I definitely think you're right, Harry. And I think that there's this idea of expandable consumption, right? That's why 36 packs exist. I think there's even a 55 pack in our database. Actually, it's amazing, right? I don't know how you carry that out of the store, but
Is
I think
that
the whole point.
100%? 55.
It's so small. I actually don't think it's in the system. I mean, if anyone knows, I'd love to hear about it. I think it has been in and out. I think it was 55. I'll have to check on exactly what the config was, but it was really big. And the point is, I think that the beer business believes in expandable consumption, and the more you can get in the house, the more that's going to be drunk. And I think there's something to be said. And, you know, also, let's not forget that, you know, one of the drivers of, you know, high double-digit growth within the off-premise during this whole period has been the shuttering of bars and restaurants. And, you know, a lot of consumers, again, they're still slow to return to bars and restaurants. But
clearly,
that's
I'm
changing.
afraid, you know, I mean, I'm afraid.
I know, Harry, what the heck are you doing? I gotta ask where you are, but I'm afraid I'm gonna give you up. So I won't ask for your location or details.
No, I can't, because it'll be we'll have a bum rush of people trying to meet me. You know, I'm kind of a big deal, you know, Patrick. I don't know if you. I'm just teasing.
No,
it's a staycation. Yeah.
No, I love it. But yeah, so with that said, yeah, I think that's still propping up some of the numbers, right? Not everywhere is Texas, assuming you're in Texas. Not everywhere is wide open. In fact, I'm here in San Francisco, and it's still pretty quiet, I will say. And, you know, I think that we've stayed fairly shuttered, for better or for worse. But then again, I live here in the Mission District, and every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, they started shutting down the main street here in the Mission. And I'll tell you, I mean, they may as well bring in some carnival games, because it's like a full-on festival out there. And it seems to be back in full swing. So, I looked at some of the consumer data to see how they're pulsing against some of their plans. And, about half of consumers are planning to eat out within the next 4 weeks. And that's up from about 44% just a few weeks prior. Bars, about 40% of consumers are saying that they're going to go to a bar in the next 4 weeks, up from about 27%. So yeah, I think, Harry, on one of your podcasts, there was a term coined, that this would be a long thaw. And I think that's showing where the thaw is happening, and maybe it's lasting even longer than we thought it would. But that's certainly going to prop up the trends in the off-premise, just the fact that not everyone's running out right now, and the off-premise is going to benefit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think that's a great segue to ask, the relative still enduring reticence to go out, right? Certainly, I would think behooves the growing online channel. The Drizzlies of the world, obviously. I don't know how much sight you guys have into this, but do you guys have any idea as to what percentage of the total BevAlc off-premise universe that comprises right now? Like, I've heard 10%. Some people say that's high. I don't know if you guys keep track of that or try to at all.
Yeah, it's a great question, and something that we are very much tuned into. Now, with that said, we don't have really strong, projected tracking figures on the channel as a whole. I mean, it really is the wild, wild west right now, especially in the beverage alcohol space. We do, however, have some really good reads into specific segments of e-commerce that we are tracking on a regular basis. And one of those is what we call it click and collect. And what that basically means is, those key retailers that we provide data for in general, like Kroger and Albertsons and Walgreens and Target, we're actually able to collect and segment out the e-commerce portion of their sales that are done online. And I can tell you right now that for the beer category, that data is showing 300% to 400% trends weekly, all the way through July. So there's clearly a surge in online purchasing through the key national accounts, at least the ones that I've mentioned that we're able to measure. That's just a small snippet of the bigger picture. Of course, the bigger picture is going to be comprised of, as you mentioned, the Drizzlies and the Go Puffs of the world. And there is not a cohesive read on them yet. But then again, we have more and more coming into our view as we're building this out at a rapid pace. We're starting to deliver Amazon data next month, which is going to be something that will be able to read specific Amazon Fresh and similar app beer, wine and spirit performance as well. So we're keeping our eye on it. Yeah, I'm excited about it. Again, it's going to be heavily driven by state and local law, and certainly not going to be something that is widely available for every state, but absolutely will give us a better read. So we're slowly kind of building this view of e-com. So I can't quite comment on what the total tracking POS figures are, because there are so many bits and pieces that are not quite drawn together yet. But I can absolutely say that from what bits and pieces we are seeing, the beverage alcohol space is moving online, faster than anyone could have imagined. And this whole phase has helped to accelerate that. Yeah.
The Amazon deal, is that through a partnership you guys have with them, or is it more your clients want to know what that is starting to look like?
Oh yeah, it's directly with Amazon. So IRI is a partner with Amazon's retail practices that allows us to provide that data.
That's interesting.
So that's going to be becoming very interesting. Yeah, and I think, and the bigger e-com question for beer is still going to be the weight of the product. I mean, I've been thinking about this. I try to think of a clear way to discuss the problem with folks. And because wine
I can give it to you.
Yeah.
Beer is heavy relative to its price. And
yeah,
that's
so
it.
Think about this, Harry. 12 pack, I looked at this, the 12 pack, 12 bottle of beer. All right. It's about what, $10, $9.99. I don't know where, depending on where you are. It's also about 10 pounds, I believe. Okay.
Yeah.
A 750 milliliter bottle of wine, again, $9.99, $10.99. It's 2.5 pounds. There's the math.
It drives every economic issue, which is why beer is different than wine and spirits. And I've been saying this for 20 years. Beer is heavy. Well, how many times have I said it? Jen Litz in a speech, you know.
Oh God. Well,
yeah.
Put another tick on the wall.
Yeah, beer is heavy relative to its price, and it's the reason why we had so many regional breweries for so long, because you didn't want to ship it very far, especially not over the mountains. You know, the Continental Divide was a huge. That's the reason that Coors was so successful, is because, you know, they're on the other side. So anyway, that's my rant. But
I think it has to be right. I mean, it is. It's pure economics. It's kind of going to drive the market. Now, my counter to that, though, is that you know, some of these delivery companies have no problem dropping off a 40-pound bag of dog food on my porch, and that's what I don't understand. Because that's a lot cheaper than a per pound basis. Someone's figuring that out.
I read in the Journal this week that they're losing money on that 40-pound model. You know, it's a big problem that Walmart and Amazon and everybody, they're really losing money on heavy items that the margins are low. But anyway, that's for a different story. But we're running short on time. This is Patrick Livingston at IRI. A lot of people refer to you as the James Franco of beer data. Because
no, I think Harry just learned that right now.
Well, a lot of people will be referring to as the James Franco, because you look like him, and also you do everything. You do C-stores, you do grocery, you do
great. That's good.
Like Franco.
Harry, I'm going to take that compliment and run with it, man. I mean, I'm thinking T-shirts, koozies.
Hey, go with it. You don't even have to pay me a license fee for the merch. But well, listen, Patrick, I do appreciate you speaking with us for so long. I know you're busy, and I'm glad you're in California, because maybe you can drop down and see us in January if this thing clears up a little bit.
Well, he's speaking, right, Patrick?
Well, I hope so. We'll see. I mean, all right?
So, this is how you guys schedule. You do it live online. I see how you get all the good people. Okay.
That's right. You damn right. That's how we do it.
Yeah, I think we'd love to, and really appreciate. In fact, I think it was Phoenix, Harry, when I was just a kid. My VP passed me the ticket and said, "Go figure this thing out." And I think I was 27 years old, and I sat in the back there and just watched in awe as you spun these stories. And Sam Calagione was back there and holding court. I mean, it's an amazing experience, and yeah, we're happy to be even a small part of it. So thanks for the invite, and thanks for having us today. I mean, we're in an awesome industry and an awesome time, and so happy to be, you know, here on the front lines and able to really analyze what's going on, so we can help everyone out there in the marketplace do a better job and be more efficient and help their businesses survive and be safe out there as well. We're happy to be here.
Cool. I agree. Great. Such a great industry, great people. And welcome James Franco to the, I don't know why that popped into my head, but I thought it was funny. All right, guys. Well, thanks. And
thank you, Patrick. Always awesome. Always insightful.
Thanks, Jen. Thanks, Harry. Enjoy your time out there. All right. Thank you.
Cheers.
Take care. Bye now.